Okay, we'll bring this meeting to order. Do I see any comment about closed session? Seeing none, we'll go to closed session.
All right.
Okay, we're back from closed session. We have no announcements from closed session. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did Mr. Gabby leave?
No, he'll be back. So roll call, we are all present. Mr. Gabby is on dealing with a personal matter, and he will come in some point soon. So, public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Notice to the public. Any member of the public wishing to address the governing board on a topic within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district, but not on the agenda, may do so during the public comment period identified in this agenda. By law, subjects not on the agenda cannot be acted upon by the board except to briefly respond, clarify, or refer to staff for review and presentation at a future meeting. 6, guests and presentation.
I do have a presentation.
Okay.
On behalf of the library staff and myself, we'd like to thank you for your service and give you a little gift.
You know what? You know what's good? Thank you. I will tell you, we'll take care of it. You know who will take care of it? My wife. She's golden. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have a brown thumb?
We'll water it.
He's a farmer, he can't have.
That's true.
Yeah, don't have it dyed.
Okay, correspondence. None?
None.
Okay. Consent agenda.
No comments. I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
For your 9A and B, I'm bringing forward the budget every month to you. So this is a snapshot of Fund 26 at the top, going across horizontally. That's on page 10. And below Fund 426, there's Fund 428. And this is the status as of October 30th. Last month, I brought you September, and I will continue to bring this to you so you can see how we're expending funds.
Thank you.
And then on page 11 through like 15, you have the expenditures. The 1,000 for our salaries, and then services and supplies, so you can see our ongoing balances.
Okay.
Okay.
Any board questions?
Nope.
Okay, so we'll move on to 9C.
And that is, we talked about, you approved the position of 5 hours a week for the literacy program. And so I wanted you to see what was put out internally for the staff, the job description. We had 2 internal applicants, and we were working with Solano County to have that's on page 17. So we're working with Solano County to administer the written proficiency test, and then we're going to hire who Solano County hires for the verbal. So we are going to administer that test first because that's part of the requirement, the Spanish-speaking bilingual, and then we'll interview.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any board questions about that?
No, no.
Any public questions on 9A through 9C? Seeing none. 9D.
That is new to our library on page 20. Jack, the part-time librarian, he runs the evening book club. He's going to start in January in movie club, and they're going to discuss a classic film each month. And on page 22, you can see the list. And so he's made a flyer for January, and this is open to the public. You can be a teen or an adult, and you can come to the library each month and discuss.
That is one of the classics that I have seen. That's only one, but I have seen that. The
Well,
Grapes of
if you're
Wrath.
interested,
Seeing
you
it again?
have the agenda.
That's the Jack Nicholson Shining, right? 1980?
Yes.
Jack, oh, that was, I think that might have been one of the only movies to ever give me nightmares.
Yeah.
Citizens.
Okay,
So it's a new forum, a new media for the library, and it should be fun.
yeah.
Really great.
Looks neat.
Oh, you know, I do have a question about that. So do we have those films in the library for people to check out? So
Yes.
they can watch?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So they'll watch them at home, just like the book club. The forum is that you come, you gather to discuss the film. So they are in the library to check out.
Oh, great. Very good.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other board questions? Any public questions? See none. 9E, HVAC repair.
I just wanted you to be aware, I know that it's below the amount that I need to bring, but I want you to know that our HVAC is kind of petering out. So I wanted to bring this forward so I didn't come in a couple months and say, oh, you know, it's completely kaput, and you were wondering, well, how come we didn't hear about it? So this is just for information.
Thank you.
Great. Any
And-
board questions? Any public questions? 9F.
And this is an application for a grant, How to MacGyver Your Library, and it's to help with space. And I pretty much finished up the draft today. And it's an application for $10,000, and they would like matching, whether it's equipment or personnel or funds. And so we're working on it for the teen center area in the library, which is 300 square feet, 12 by 25. And so Jim Tinder is reading it over in the next couple days. And then when I get back on Wednesday, I'll speak to he and Catherine, and then we'll be submitting it. It's due the 28th.
Okay, great.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you, yeah.
Oh, you're
That's
welcome.
Really proactive.
So what equipment are you talking about? 'Cause
Well,
MacGyver-
in-
MacGyver only needed duct tape.
I know.
Oh,
Well, we're
it's-
not
yeah.
asking for duct tape, but the teen center, the 300 feet is upstairs in the Carnegie, and it's right, the only thing that divides it between the open, quiet area is a bookshelf about 5 feet tall. So we're asking for like a flexible wall, seating, some maybe glass structures. They come in and help you with the, design it. The state does. And so the shelving and just maybe a laptop bar or, computer bar, just something to make it more amenable for teens. And then Dixon, well, you're very familiar with our LCAP. And one of their LCAP goals is to have homework and tutoring available. So maybe they could do some collaborative work while they're at the library, or, just make it amenable. So in the winter months, or, if they're not playing a sport, they can come after school, and, maybe more comfortable chairs, because right now there's just 4 benches.
That's very
So
good.
the maximizing learning spaces 2018, 2019, they'll send an expert to look at that space.
Yes.
And help us say,
Yes.
what can we do to develop it?
Yes. So anyway, it's due November 28th, but I finished up the draft today, and I gave it, like I said, to Jim, and he'll pass it on to Catherine.
That's really great.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, yeah.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any public questions? Okay, moving on to number 10.
Okay, this section here is discussion items for the first reading of board policies. And you'll notice that some of these have come before you prior, but I do have revision on the bottom, date, but it was never board approved. And then when I brought these last month, a couple of them, you had asked for additional points. So what I'd like to point out on 10A1 is I've taken several policies and combined them, because the American Library Association, that's how they present it. And so you'll notice that it's much longer, but objectives of the collection, intellectual freedom, and then what patron-driven acquisition, local authors, additional criteria, DVD. So we're moving to the 21st century. Deselection, collection, maintenance, that's really important, because that is part of the state report that we have to submit. Controversial materials, reconsideration. So I've done some attachments that the American Library Association So it's all in one place, and I think it'll be easier for the patrons and the staff to use. And then on page, so 41, you can see 41 and 42, what the policy was before, and then it was crossed out on 2006, but this was never brought before you for approval. And then page 43, I've made some forms. So Dixon Public Library requests for reconsideration of library material because we do have the option to remove material. And on page 44 is blank. 45 is request for reconsideration of library material again, but right behind it, it's in 46, it's in Spanish. So then the patrons could fill out this form and make it easier for them instead of writing a letter. And it would make it easier for the staff to review, because it's all the same format and asking the questions. So then, following that, I've just included the policy numbers that I encompassed in this, just so you can see. And then there were some revisions, and it said revised 4/12/28, but 18, but I never saw where there was board approval. So,
Okay.
okay?
Okay. Any questions? Any public questions? No? Okay. Moving on.
Page 54 is first reading of conflict of interest, and you all know about Form 700. So I have taken the language, some of it from Dixon Unified School District, and some of it from Ed Code, and put that in there. And so everything in red is new through page 57, and on page 58, I have Form 700, which would be included in the policy and procedure manual for employees if there's a conflict, or the director or such. And then you can see on page 59, our conflict of interest was one page. So I'm not trying to create more work, but I'm trying to make it clearer, and so 21st century.
Okay. Any questions?
No?
Any public questions or comments? Seeing none.
Okay, the next one is vehicle use and cost reimbursement with changes requested by the board. That begins on page 60. Anything that you see in red is new from last time, and then I've incorporated some examples. Use of personal and rental vehicles, and I got some of the verbiage from SDMRA, our liability coverage. But one of the things on page 61 is that you ask for what was the law require as far as insurance for a car, because we didn't have that. So that's down about 2/3 of the page.
Yeah.
And then rental vehicle insurance, and then also prohibited cell phone use while driving. I think that's really important. And so, then page 62 wraps up what we had last time. 63, I will include the vendor claim for mileage reimbursement, so the employees know where to get the form. And then on page 64 was our pass policy.
Great. Any questions about that?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Any public comments? No. Okay, moving on.
Okay, 30, board policy 3150, compensation. There's been some not real clear about compensation, and and the salary schedules. And so when a person is hired at the library, they're hired on step 1, and 6 months later, they go to step 2. And so it's just what hasn't been clear about the longevity and certain things. So, and page 66 is still the same. But then I added on page 67 a work schedule, when the work week begins and when it ends, and pay periods, and payroll deductions, and pay advances. And, and I have Dixon Public Library does not, on the top of page 68.
Dies not?
Yeah.
Does not. But anyway, I included that. That hasn't been in there, and there have been a couple incidences where people have asked for advances.
Okay, I do have a question about this.
Sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see anywhere, in order for people to have a step increase, I know that somewhere in our board policies, it does say that they have to have a written review done in order to have a step increase, or
They are to be evaluated, yes.
is that, am I just missing where it might be as part of this? Or is this not the correct place that it would be?
So on page 66,
Uh-huh.
3150.2.1, at the conclusion of 6-month probationary period, 13 pay periods, after the date of hire, employee may advance to the next step on the salary schedule, step 2, with a satisfactory 6-month, 13 pay period evaluation.
Evaluation.
And then following that, at the conclusion of every 12 months, then employee cannot advance to the highest, so anyway, it's in there.
And then 3150.3 says employees who are promoted to a position with a higher salary will be placed on the higher salary schedule step.
Do you think that it's possible that we could add written evaluation?
Sure.
So we have, documentation in their personnel files that the evaluation actually happened? Because evaluation could be verbal, but a written.
Sure. So I will add written. And I have completed all goal setting with employees, except for 2, one who works 1 month, 1 Saturday a month, and I couldn't be there last month, and one who works 1 Sunday, well, the other Saturday a month. And so I'm getting ready to do mid-year checks on their goals and objectives. So, and they're all written, and they're turned in, and I have them. So, anyway.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions?
They just give you a clerical thing, 3150.6 on page 68, Dixon Public Library does not.
Yeah, she already said.
Yeah,
Which is-
She already said that,
I
yeah.
didn't hear it.
that may have been kind of,
Yeah.
Right. Got it.
He's talking
It's
to
always me. Yeah.
Yeah.
and so, anyway, it does say it was revised on 10/9/2014, but I didn't see.
Never saw a revision.
Okay, and then on page 71, we have Board Policy 4225, which is the internet, and I brought that to you, but I wanted to show the form that we made for that, if you're banned, barred, appeal form, so patrons can have that instead of writing a letter, and so it just is consistent. And then on page 73, it's in Spanish.
Okay,
Great. Any questions?
No.
Any public questions? Okay, moving on.
And the next board policy for first reading is policy 800. You can see where it is there. And, actually 74. I just changed Library Board of Trustees. There wasn't much to change on that one.
Got it.
So
Okay,
that's the first reading of 6 policies.
that's
Great.
8,000, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
And so I will bring them in December for second reading.
Perfect.
great.
Thank you.
thank you.
So if you see anything over the next month and you want me to change it, let me know.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Okay. Any public comments or questions? Seeing none? Okay. Let's move on. Library Director Search.
On page 76, so I sent Susan and Catherine and Heather on a field trip to see the Winters Library. And then Susan attended a splash meeting. And so I asked her, we had a conversation, the staff, about, how do we seek a permanent director? And so at that splash meeting, the director of Benicia was there, and he sent this to us, what Benicia did to recruit a director. And then on page 79, at this last staff meeting, I solicited input on what they'd like to see in the director. So just to give you an idea of, and I know you haven't decided kind of what direction, but just,
That's
so you
helpful.
have
Thank you,
input.
yeah.
Great. Any questions? Public comments? No? Okay, moving on.
The staff and I met with JK Architecture and Engineering on the 25th, and so some interesting dialogue, but here's the presentation that we received. But on the top of page 87, I put 2 slides on one page, so it may look a little confusing, but on the top of page 87, here are the Dixon Public Library demographics, and we took these from our public facilities fee and the census. But you can see at the top, the city of Dixon current population is 19,896. And the state, when I'm working with the California Library, they have given us our service area of a population of 25,000. So outside of the
Right.
city of Dixon limits. So if you move to the right, it says existing square feet is 6,000 at the Dixon Public Library. And if you measure 0.75 times square foot capita, which is a normal for the library, we currently should have square footage of 18,750 square feet. So,
The 6,000, is that including the buildings that aren't being really used? That is including that too,
it
right?
doesn't include the basement, and it doesn't include the Miller Building.
Okay, the Miller, okay.
So, and then on page 85 and 86, it talks about concepts, you know, the community hub, participatory collections, 21st century, and 86. So these are ideas that the staff has shared with JKA. So, about some of the things, and some of the things are just kind of the norm at libraries right now. And then if you go to page 98, actually go back to 97. At the top, you'll see a picture of what the library would like to, the library staff would like to see for the library. So, and because of finances and income, revenue, we looked at a phased construction. So you can see phase 1 and phase 2. So the area behind the Carnegie is like a small hall, but you could see where phase A would go towards, well, you'll know the streets better than I do, behind that empty lot.
Second.
Yeah, okay, second, thank you. And then phase 2 is the Miller Building. And then phase 1C is the current, where we are. And so the staff and JKAE would like to have a board workshop on the 13th before the meeting. So for about an hour, and to just kind of show you where we are and keep the momentum going, if that's possible, if you would like to consider that. And that's on page 98, December 13th, update on committee workshops, review Dixon Library demographics, review organizational expansion strategies, so, and talk about next steps before we get too far.
Okay, I think that sounds fine. What does everyone think about that?
We said before our meeting, is there a reason we can't just do it at our meeting?
Sure, but just with a workshop, you don't have to be so formal. You don't have to,
Yeah,
you know.
that's true.
So if you wanted to start the board workshop at 7 and then have a regular meeting at 8?
Yeah.
Or do you just want it part of your?
Want to start earlier? We could do the board workshop at 6 and then do the meeting at 7. I don't really have any preference, but
I think we could probably still get done. I mean, even if we started at 7 and say it took an hour, and then our rest of our stuff even took 45 minutes, we'd still be out of here before 9, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to make it a light meeting because we have to swear in board members and you have to do your organization. So I'll bring this first reading of the board policies for second reading. So I'll keep it a light agenda.
Okay, so
Yeah, let's do
start
it
at
start at 7, yeah.
So can I just ask you all a question? So our first meeting for the school board, we'll do our board organization for
Yeah.
that, and then, okay.
Mhm. That's on the 6th,
Okay, the
Yeah.
6th, and then, okay, and then the 13th.
because that's the only meeting we have that month for school board.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other questions on JK? Any public comment? No? Moving on.
Okay, action items, second reading. So this is the second reading and continuity of service. And you're probably wondering why I have the big box of vacation leave. And it's very clear in the board policy that you have to have continuity of service. And I did find there's been 2 employees who have received maximum vacation time in the last, they were hired in the last 3-4 years. And so it's, for the employees who have had continuity of service, it seems inequitable. But so I wanted to make sure that even though this is Board Policy 3070, how you accrue vacation, which you had already approved. So I just wanted to point that out.
So I'm sorry, can you explain what you mean about those
Well,
employees?
Let's, in the board policy, it says you have to have continuity of service to receive the maximum vacation time. There have been 2 employees who have been hired in the last 4 years who went directly to maximum vacation time without continuity of service.
Okay. So this is not an action item, or,
It is, it's a second reading, but I just wanted to put that in there, the box that you had already approved, so
okay.
that employees know that when they're hired, that there is a board policy, and it does pertain to vacation leave.
So it means that no matter who you are, minus the director, because that's laid out in their contract, this is how you accrue your vacation?
Yes.
Okay.
So it says during the first 3 years, 4 years, after 10 years, and then there's a box of vacation credit time, which you approved at a
Do-
prior meeting.
Do our employees get sick leave on top of vacation leave?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
They accrue that every pay period,
Okay.
vacation and sick leave.
Okay.
and then there's a small change on 3070.2.
Yes, so an employee voluntarily terminates his or her employment discharge, or the employee is laid off. So I wanted to add that because you've had layoffs in the past, and so.
Okay, any questions on 11A1? Any public comment or questions? Okay, so this is an action item, so we need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
I'll
We have-
second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it passes.
Okay.
Okay,
This was before you last time when we talked about having an annual audit instead of biannual.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, any questions? Any public questions or comments? Okay, we need a motion for approval of 5001.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Okay, 11A3.
This is current library district funds. So what I did, the only change I made this time is on page 105, because you had the list of assets and I didn't have the amounts. This is what our balance was as of September 30th in Fund 26 and Fund 28, just because I thought it would put it more in perspective, because you have, what is it, cash and treasury without a number, you're kind of like, well, so anyway, I thought that I would bring that to you so you could see where we are currently.
So each year, that section of this policy will be recalculated and changed, and then we'll approve it each year?
Well, while I'm present, what I'd like to do is bring you this list and show you the amounts. So I could have September 30th and then October 30th And so you can see as we go through the year what the amounts are, because down at the, right below that, you have reserved for building, $650,000 for purposes of property acquisition and a new library facility, currently not funded. And then you have reserved for emergency operations, that's funded. And the capital acquisition, 50,000, currently not funded. So as we go through the year, and you have a long-term, like an annual snapshot, you can say, you know what, we need to change that 650,000. We need to make a new board policy where it's 500,000 or $1 million, just so you can see with the numbers. So as we go through month by month, I'd like to bring that and put it in the section where I showed you 426 and 428 with these headings, because that's what's in board policy. And maybe this is second reading, but maybe you don't feel like this is needed.
I was gonna say one thing, 650, the 650,000, it's a comma.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a .00 for capital acquisition and not for the first two, so maybe just making those consistent.
Okay.
Either way.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thoughts?
if this was updated, does that mean we will have to reapprove this every time?
If you wanted to change the amounts that are reserved for building reserve emergency, it's a second reading. You could do it now and say, I don't think we need that much, because I don't know if you're planning to do more property acquisition. I think you did that 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I don't know that that's a realistic number. I don't know, but with modernization and renovation, and so I'm not sure.
So annually, though, unless we wanted to change some of these numbers, we wouldn't be reapproving this
no.
policy every year.
No, I just wanted to bring you the numbers, because when you look at the list, cash and treasury, impress, the petty cash, I wanted you to know what's in there, and is there money, and
So I have a question, not necessarily about this, and this might be a silly question, because maybe I should know this. Does the library get developer fees?
yes.
Like a certain,
Yeah,
And you asked me to look into that, if we could raise the developer fees, and nobody has gotten back to me
okay,
yet.
I just wanted to just double check to make sure I was sure about that. Because as we have a whole bunch more homes filling in, we still have a teeny tiny library.
And that was in the report last month, public facilities fee, impact fee. I brought that to you.
So where do those dollars that when we get from those developer fees, what fund does that go into?
That goes into facility fee funds and reserve, some of these other future loan redemption requirements, land, structures and improvement. You can see there's large amounts in there.
Okay, it'd just be good to know exactly what fund number 426 or 428 and
Okay.
where it is actually going into. I mean,
Okay, I can bring that to you next
theoretically,
time.
we have $1 million in cash in 426 and 800,000 in 428, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be good to understand, approximately, even for the last 12 months,
Okay,
how much have we received?
okay.
from that
Where are the
perspective.
funds?
I mean, you guys are going to discuss next month about some of the phases that you want to talk about.
Okay, and as a member of the public, you can come get this information.
Of course I can, sure.
He'll be right front and
sure,
center.
Sit right
front and
here,
center,
Okay, any other questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Any public questions or comments? So you'd like a motion to approve this? We have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Who made the motion? John?
Me, I am.
Got it.
Okay,
I
good.
did.
Okay, so on to, where were we? Lost my place.
108.
We are on.
11A4, I think. You just did 5,000.
Yeah, 11A,
So it's on page 108, and categorization of unspent budget funds at the end of the fiscal year. So it does say unspent operating funds remaining at the end of the fiscal year would go to,
Reserve capital assets?
and so is that what you want to continue to do?
Any questions or comments?
I wouldn't say why not.
Seems fine to me.
Okay.
Any public questions or comments? No? Okay, we need a motion to approve.
I'll
Yep.
move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
As well.
Catlin and Guy.
Okay.
Okay, and then in my first contract, it was talking about a report. And I talked to you about that was obsolete, and now it's the Public Library Survey Report.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've just included that report for you, and I have 2 slides on each page. And there's some interesting facts. On page 112, it talks about the population of the legal service area, and that was put in by the state. That's not something that we could do. But it talks about population of children ages under 5, 1,814, and I know the preschool numbers in Dixon Unified are about 74, 75. And so it does show that there are children outside of the city limits. And, but, you know, it talks about personnel on the page, bottom of page 112. You have 19 employees and how they're split up. And that our local income is 1.4 million. A lot of that's from Measure L. And so there's just, you know, the entire collection of books. We added 1,630 children's books. Books held as of, children books as of June 30 is 19,000, almost 20,000 books. So anyway, there's some nice information in here. We loan to others 18,352, and that's through our Splash partnership. And we ran 166 preschool programs. And preschool program attendance, it was 1,680. So we have some significant numbers. And talks about young programs and then salaries, monthly salaries on page 118. So this survey report, this new model, it gives you really a snapshot of our library.
Is this posted anywhere in the library for if people want to?
We haven't posted it, we send it into the state, but I'm happy to do that.
I just think, you know, well, I don't know if anyone would look at it or not, but I think it's useful information if people
Yeah.
want to see what the library's doing.
So like when we apply for grants, I know we talked about the MacGyver and duct tape, but I'd like to apply for another grant that's due. There's one in December that's due and one in January for the arts, because I think it could enhance the summer reading program and the programs year-round. And so, you know, a lot of this information I can glean from here or the facilities impact fee.
And where, yeah, I know you said it was a state program, or state submission, but what department is it? The state library, or is it somewhere else? Okay.
State library.
Okay. Any
And-
other questions?
Nope.
Sorry,
No.
did you want to say something else?
No,
So this report was a report that you had, that you do and submit it to the state?
yes, it's
They-
the second year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
This is the one she found out was what she needed to be doing instead of what.
You
we
had
were
Ed
doing.
Code 18404 or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring this forward so you know it got done.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for that.
And I, you know, Catherine, I mean, it was a group effort because Susan collected some numbers and Catherine collected
Nice
and
job.
Jim collected, so.
Nice.
Well, thank them all for us.
Yes.
I'm sure they're diligently watching.
They do watch.
It's good.
So
Yeah.
They've heard me, but thank them anyways for us,
Okay.
please.
Okay, any public questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve 11B, the annual library survey?
I'll move.
We have a
Second.
motion? We have-
Second.
We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I heard the
Okay.
second by Guy, but,
Me.
Yes.
and who was the first, John?
It
Melissa?
was me.
Melissa.
And so actually on B, I wrote, 2017-18 State of California Annual Library Survey submitted to the State of California in lieu of Education Code 18408. I said 18404, so, sorry.
Thank you.
Quite all right. Okay, 11C.
Is extension of my contract, and the box must be read.
Got it.
Yes,
So
okay.
the contract states November 1st through December 20th, so do you
Pers-
want to extend that date, or?
Yes, I should read the box first, I
Okay.
assume. Pursuant, or I assume that's supposed to be pursuant
Yes.
to Government Code Section 54953 subdivision C3. The board provides this oral summary of the compensation for the part-time and temporary executive position of acting interim library director. The term of the contract will be extended commencing November 1st, 2018, and ending December 20th, 2018. The salary to be paid shall remain at the rate of $475 per day, less all statutory deductions. The contract or amendment does not provide for any other compensation or benefits. Maybe we should have voted on it first. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be read first or not. So do we have any comments on this? No? Any public comments or questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the extension of the acting interim director's contract?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
And then at the bottom, I'd just like you to note that I'm going to include the library calendar, so
Nice.
if you want to stop by.
There you
so
go.
See what we're doing.
Super. Okay. Any other board questions or comments or suggestions? No? And we have no one making a public comment. So thank you for everything you've done,
Oh,
Nice
you're
job.
welcome.
and we'll adjourn the meeting.
Okay, we made it in time.